My stepbrother framed me for a crime I didn't commit to get my inheritance. My aunt called it sibling rivalry. The federal agent showed me the photograph at 9:30 in the morning on a Friday, and I remember thinking the coffee I'd just swallowed tasted wrong. Special Agent Victoria Hayes, 15 years with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, pushed the 8x10 glossy across the conference room table with 2 fingers like it was contaminated. The image showed a bank statement, my bank statement, with a wire transfer for $85,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands that I'd never heard of, never opened, never authorized. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, and her voice had that practiced neutrality that law enforcement uses when they've already decided you're guilty. "Can you explain this transaction?" "I can't explain it because I didn't make it. The statement says otherwise. The statement is wrong, or fake, or I don't know what, but I didn't send money to the Caymans. I don't even know anyone in the Caymans." She pulled out another photo. This one showed an email, my email address in the sender field. The message was brief, clinical, exactly the kind of language you'd use if you were trying to hide assets from the government. The recipient was listed as T. Whitmore, Trevor, my stepbrother. My stomach dropped through the floor. Agent Hayes watched my face with the intensity of someone trained to read micro-expressions for lies. "You didn't send this email either?" "No. You didn't authorize your stepbrother to help you move funds offshore?" "Absolutely not." "Then how did these transactions happen from your accounts using your credentials during a period when your father's estate was being settled and you stood to inherit substantial assets?" "I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, I didn't do this. Someone's setting me up." She leaned back in her chair. "That's what they all say." I'd been working as a mechanical engineer for Titan Aerospace for 8 years when my father died. Heart attack at 61, sudden and catastrophic, the kind that gives you no warning and no chance. One minute he was trimming hedges in the backyard of the house he'd lived in for 30 years. The next minute he was gone. I got the call from Christine, his wife of 12 years, my stepmother. She was hysterical, barely coherent, and I drove the 3 hours from my apartment in Denver to their house in Boulder thinking the whole way that this had to be a mistake. Dad was healthy. He hiked. He played tennis twice a week. He'd just had a physical 2 months ago, and everything was fine. But it wasn't a mistake. By the time I arrived, the paramedics had already left. The medical examiner had taken the body. Christine was sitting in the kitchen with her sister Linda and her son Trevor, all of them red-eyed and shell-shocked. Trevor was 26, 2 years younger than me, and we'd been stepbrothers since he was 14. Our relationship was cordial but not close. He lived in Boulder, worked in real estate, drove a Mercedes he couldn't quite afford, and had the kind of confidence that comes from never really struggling for anything. He'd been decent to me over the years, never hostile, never particularly warm, just there, part of the package deal when Dad married Christine. We shook hands at the funeral, stood next to each other during the burial, made small talk about Dad's favorite memories, and 2 weeks later, when the lawyer read the will, I understood why Trevor had been so friendly. Dad had been successful. Started a consulting firm in his 30s, sold it in his 50s, invested wisely. The estate was worth approximately $2.4 million after taxes and debts. The will was straightforward. Christine got the house and $500,000. Trevor got $250,000. I got the rest, roughly $1.6 million, because I was Dad's biological son and because Dad had helped put Trevor through college already. The reading happened in the office of Leonard Kaplan, the estate attorney, 72 years old with 4 decades of experience in probate law. Christine cried when she heard the numbers. Trevor's expression didn't change. He nodded, said he understood, told Christine that Dad had been generous and fair, shook my hand afterward and said congratulations without a trace of resentment in his voice. I should have known then, should have recognized that lack of emotion as a red flag, but I was grieving and distracted, and I took his composure as maturity. The first strange detail came 3 weeks later. I was back in Denver, back at work, trying to process my father's death while managing projects and deadlines. My phone rang at 11 at night, Christine's number. I answered expecting some question about estate paperwork, or maybe just her needing to talk. Instead, she was angry. "Ian, why are you transferring money out of the estate account?" "What?" "I haven't touched the estate account. Leonard said funds don't transfer until probate closes. There's a wire transfer pending, $85,000 to an offshore account. Leonard called me this afternoon asking if I authorized it. I didn't authorize anything. Are you sure you didn't make a mistake, or?" "I'm telling you I didn't do it. Check with Leonard. Have him verify." She hung up without saying goodbye. If you are enjoying this story already, please subscribe to see more stories like this. I called Leonard Kaplan first thing Monday morning. He sounded tired and frustrated. "Ian, we have a problem. The estate account shows a wire transfer request submitted Friday afternoon, $85,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands. The request came from an email address that appears to be yours. It's not mine. I didn't send any email. I didn't request any transfer. The email headers show it originated from your IP address, your home internet connection. That's impossible. I was at work all day Friday. I have time logs, badge swipes, witness who can verify. Then someone accessed your computer remotely or spoofed your credentials. Either way, we have a serious problem. The transfer was flagged by the bank's fraud detection system, which is the only reason it didn't go through. But the FBI has been notified because this looks like an attempt to hide assets during probate. The FBI? Leonard, I didn't do this. Someone's trying to make it look like I did. Who would want to frame you? I didn't have an answer then. Didn't want to believe the obvious suspect because that would mean accepting that my stepbrother was capable of something so calculated and cruel. But the timing was too precise. The amount, $85,000, was exactly 10% of what I stood to inherit after Christine and Trevor got their shares. Someone had done the math. Someone knew the estate details. Someone had access to information that only family and the attorney would have. I told Leonard I'd cooperate fully with any investigation. Told him to preserve all evidence. Told him I was innocent and would prove it. The FBI showed up at my office 6 days later. Agent Victoria Hayes and her partner, Agent Michael Reeves, both dressed in suits that cost more than my monthly car payment. They asked to speak with me privately. My supervisor, a woman named Dorothy Kim, who'd worked at Titan for 20 years, gave us a conference room and told me to cooperate fully. The agents laid out the evidence methodically. The wire transfer request, the email from my address, forensic analysis showing the message originated from my home IP. A second email sent 2 days later with detailed instructions about hiding the transfer from probate court. A third email discussing plans to move additional funds once the estate settled, all sent from my email, all during times when I could have been at my computer, none of which I'd sent. Mr. Whitmore, Agent Hayes said, financial fraud during estate settlement is a federal crime. If convicted, you're looking at up to 5 years in federal prison plus restitution. I didn't do this. Someone hacked my email or cloned my credentials or I don't know what, but it wasn't me. Who would want to frame you? I looked at both agents. Thought about Trevor's calm reaction to the will, thought about his struggling real estate career, thought about the Mercedes he couldn't afford and the lifestyle he maintained on commission-only income, thought about how he'd been at the estate attorney's office, heard all the details, knew exactly how much I was getting. My stepbrother, Trevor, he's the only one with motive and access to this information. Agent Hayes made a note. Trevor Whitmore. He lives in Boulder? Yes. He got $250,000 in the will. I got substantially more. Maybe he thought that wasn't fair. We'll look into it. In the meantime, don't leave the state. Don't access the estate account. Don't make any large financial transactions. And get a lawyer. I already feel like a criminal. You're not a criminal until you're convicted. But right now, the evidence suggests you committed a crime. We have to follow that evidence wherever it leads. I hired Stephen Clark, a criminal defense attorney recommended by a colleague whose brother had been investigated for tax issues. Clark was 58, former federal prosecutor, knew the system intimately. His office was downtown Denver, 23rd floor with a view of the mountains. He listened to my story without interrupting, took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asked clarifying questions. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me with the kind of directness that either builds trust or destroys it. Ian, I'm going to ask you this once, and I need complete honesty. Did you send those emails? No. Did you authorize anyone else to send them on your behalf? No. Do you have any knowledge of offshore accounts in your name? None. Do you use the same password for multiple accounts? I paused. Sometimes. That's how they got in. Someone who knows you well enough to guess your passwords or who had access to your computer could have done this. Trevor. Clark nodded. Stepbrother with financial motive and physical proximity. He's been to your apartment? A few times over the years? Family dinners, holidays? He could have observed your habits, seen you type passwords, installed keylogging software if he's tech-savvy. I don't know if he's tech-savvy. That's what we're going to find out. I'm hiring a digital forensics expert to examine your computer and network. We need to prove someone else accessed your email. We need to establish timeline and opportunity. And we need to investigate Trevor's finances to see if he has the motive we think he does. The forensics expert was a woman named Dr. Yolanda Pierce, Ph.D. in computer science from MIT, 15 years consulting on cybercrime cases. She came to my apartment on a Saturday with a laptop and a case full of equipment, spent 4 hours examining my computer, my router, my phone, asked me questions about my digital habits, my password management, my security practices. When she finished, her expression was grim. Someone installed remote access software on your machine approximately 6 weeks ago. The software is sophisticated, commercial grade, the kind used by IT departments for legitimate remote support. But in this case, it was used to access your computer without your knowledge. How did it get installed? Did you download anything unusual? Click any suspicious links? I thought back. 6 weeks ago was right after Dad's funeral, right after I'd returned to Denver. I couldn't remember anything specific. Trevor visited you around that time? He came to Denver 3 weeks after the funeral, said he wanted to check on me, see how I was doing. We had dinner. He came back here afterward? For maybe 20 minutes. Used my bathroom, had a drink, could have accessed my computer during that time? If he knew what he was doing, yes. Installing remote access software takes less than 5 minutes if you have physical access. Once it's installed, he could control your computer from anywhere, see everything you type, including passwords, send emails as you, transfer money as you, all without you knowing. Dr. Pierce showed me logs from the remote access software, 3 separate sessions in the weeks following Trevor's visit, each session lasting between 15 and 30 minutes. each occurring late at night when I would have been asleep. Each session showing activity in my email and banking accounts. He was building his frame job, creating evidence that would destroy you. I called Christine that night, told her what the forensics expert had found, told her I believed Trevor was behind the fraud. Her response was exactly what I should have expected, but somehow still surprised me. Ian, that's ridiculous. Trevor wouldn't do something like this. Christine, the evidence points directly to him. What evidence? Remote access software installed when he visited my apartment. Logs showing someone accessed my email and bank accounts from an external location. Emails that were sent while I was asleep. All of it points to Trevor. You're paranoid. You're looking for someone to blame because you can't accept that maybe you made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. I'm being framed. Her voice got cold. Trevor is my son. He's your brother. Family doesn't do this to family. He's my stepbrother. And apparently he does. I hung up before she could respond. Called my Aunt Linda, Christine's sister, thinking maybe she'd be more reasonable. She wasn't. Ian, honey, I think you're under a lot of stress. Losing your father, dealing with the estate, the pressure of inheriting so much money. Maybe you did something and don't remember clearly. I remember perfectly clearly that I didn't commit fraud. Trevor has always been a good kid. He wouldn't frame you for a crime. This is just sibling rivalry getting out of hand. Sibling rivalry? Linda, we're talking about federal crimes. Prison time. This isn't rivalry, it's sabotage. You're being dramatic. I think you need to apologize to Trevor and Christine and work this out like adults. I hung up on her too. Stephen Clark filed a motion to subpoena Trevor's financial records, argued that my stepbrother had motive and opportunity and should be investigated. The federal prosecutor, a man named Gregory Ashford, 39 years old with an 86% conviction rate, opposed the motion, argued that I was deflecting blame onto a family member without substantial evidence. The judge, Honorable Robert Chang, 65 years old with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, sided with Clark, granted the subpoena, ordered Trevor to produce bank statements, tax returns, and any records of offshore accounts. Trevor's attorney, a corporate lawyer named Jennifer Lee who specialized in real estate transactions, fought the subpoena, claimed it was harassment, claimed I was using the legal system to damage my stepbrother's reputation out of spite. The judge wasn't persuaded. The subpoena stood. 3 weeks later, Clark called me into his office, spread financial documents across his desk like playing cards. Ian, look at this. Trevor's bank statements for the last 6 months. He's been hemorrhaging money. Credit card debt over $75,000. Car loan payments he's missed twice. Rent payments to his landlord that have bounced. He's broke, which gives him motive to steal from the estate. Not just motive. Look at this. Clark pointed to a transaction from 2 months ago. $5,000 deposited into Trevor's account from a company called Secure Remote Solutions. What's Secure Remote? They sell remote access software. Commercial and consumer versions. The exact type of software Dr. Pierce found on your computer. Trevor bought the software he used to hack me. It looks that way. And there's more. Clark pulled out another document. 3 weeks before your father died, Trevor took out a $20,000 personal loan. The loan application lists expected inheritance as collateral. He was counting on that money before Dad was even gone. The evidence was building, but it wasn't enough. The FBI wanted proof that Trevor had actually sent the fraudulent emails, not just that he had motive and purchased software. We needed the smoking gun. Dr. Pierce suggested we examine Trevor's devices. If he'd accessed my email remotely, there would be logs on his computer showing the connection. But getting access to Trevor's computer required either his cooperation or another subpoena. Trevor wasn't cooperating. His attorney Jennifer Lee sent a letter to Clark calling the investigation a witch hunt, saying her client was being victimized by his stepbrother's criminal behavior and refusal to take accountability. The letter made me want to put my fist through a wall. Stephen Clark filed for a second subpoena, this time requesting Trevor's laptop, phone, and any other electronic devices. Gregory Ashford, the federal prosecutor, opposed again, said we were fishing, said the financial records showed motive, but didn't prove Trevor had committed the actual fraud. Judge Chang took 2 weeks to decide, finally granted a limited subpoena for Trevor's laptop only, ordered it to be turned over to Dr. Pierce for examination. Trevor's attorney tried one more time to block it, filed an emergency appeal, lost. The laptop arrived at Dr. Pierce's lab on a Wednesday morning via courier. She called me that afternoon. Her voice had an edge of excitement that made my pulse quicken. Ian, I found it. Found what? The connection logs. Trevor accessed your email account 4 times over a 3-week period. All 4 times match the timestamps on the fraudulent emails. His laptop shows he logged into your bank account twice. Once to research how to submit wire transfers, once to actually submit the $85,000 transfer that got flagged. Can you prove it was him and not someone else using his laptop? The laptop requires biometric login, fingerprint scanner. Every session that accessed your accounts shows Trevor's fingerprint authentication. It's ironclad. Agent Victoria Hayes came to Stephen Clark's office the next day. We presented Dr. Pierce's findings, showed the connection logs, the authentication records, the timeline that proved Trevor had orchestrated everything. Hayes reviewed the evidence with the kind of methodical care that made clear she was taking it seriously. When she finished, she looked at me for a long moment. Mr. Whitmore, I owe you an apology. We investigated you based on preliminary evidence that pointed in your direction. But this shows clearly that your stepbrother was the one who committed the fraud. What happens now? Now we arrest Trevor. We'll charge him with wire fraud, identity theft, and attempted theft from an estate. He's looking at federal prison time. How much time? Hayes shrugged. Depends on the judge and whether he cooperates. If he pleads guilty and shows remorse, maybe 3 to 5 years. If he fights it and loses, could be 10. My hands were shaking. These were not from fear this time, but from anger. He tried to destroy me, tried to send me to prison so he could steal my inheritance. He'll face consequences for that. I promise you. Hayes stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, you were right to keep insisting you were innocent. A lot of people in your position would have taken a plea deal to avoid trial. You didn't give up. That takes courage. I didn't feel courageous. I felt exhausted, felt like I'd been fighting for my life for months, and was only now starting to catch my breath. Trevor was arrested 2 days later at his apartment in Boulder. Agent Hayes and 2 other FBI agents executed the warrant at 6 in the morning. Christine called me screaming. How could you do this to him? He's your brother. He's not my brother. He's a criminal who tried to frame me for fraud. You're tearing this family apart. He tore it apart when he decided to steal from me. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy. I'm just relieved the truth came out. She hung up. I never heard from her again. Trevor's arraignment was 3 weeks later. Federal courthouse in Denver. Courtroom packed with spectators because the case had made local news. Stepbrother frames, stepbrother in inheritance scheme. The kind of headline that attracts attention. I sat in the back row with Stephen Clark. Watched Trevor walk in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner. Scared. The judge read the charges. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Attempted theft of estate assets. Computer fraud and abuse. 4 federal charges, each carrying potential prison time. Trevor's attorney Jennifer Lee entered a not guilty plea. Requested bail. Gregory Ashford, now prosecuting Trevor instead of me, argued against bail. Said Trevor was a flight risk given the offshore accounts involved. Said he'd already demonstrated willingness to commit fraud. Judge Chang set bail at $200,000. Christine posted it using the money from Dad's estate. The irony wasn't lost on me. Trevor walked out of the courthouse a free man pending trial. Saw me standing near the exit. For a moment, our eyes met. I expected anger or defiance. Instead, I saw something closer to resignation. He knew he was caught. Knew the evidence was overwhelming. Knew his plan had failed spectacularly. He didn't say anything. Just looked away and kept walking. His attorney stopped to speak with the press. Proclaimed her client's innocence. Said the evidence had been misinterpreted. Said Trevor was the victim of a family dispute that had gotten out of control. The reporters ate it up. By evening, the story was on 3 local news channels. My phone rang constantly. Friends, colleagues, distant relatives, all wanting to know what really happened. I stopped answering. If this story keeps your interest, please subscribe to get more stories like this. The trial was set for 4 months later. Trevor's attorney tried multiple times to get the case dismissed or the evidence suppressed. Every motion was denied. The evidence was too strong. Dr. Pierce's forensic analysis was too thorough. Trevor's own financial records told a story of desperation that gave him clear motive. 2 weeks before trial, Jennifer Lee contacted Stephen Clark. Said her client wanted to discuss a plea deal. We met at Clark's office. Trevor sat across from me looking defeated. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, looked like someone who hadn't slept well in months. Stephen Clark laid out the terms. Trevor would plead guilty to all charges, would cooperate fully with the prosecution, would make a statement acknowledging what he'd done and why. In exchange, the prosecution would recommend a reduced sentence, 5 years instead of 10. Trevor would also forfeit any claim to Dad's estate and would be required to pay restitution for my legal fees. Trevor listened without speaking. When Clark finished, he looked at me. I'm sorry, Ian. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. Why did you do it? Money. I was drowning in debt. The real estate market crashed and I had no income. I saw how much you were getting from Dad's estate and you just decided to steal it by framing me for a crime? I didn't think it would go this far. I thought the wire transfer would go through and I'd have enough money to pay my debts and no one would notice until later. When it got flagged, I panicked. Started creating more evidence to make it look like you were guilty so they'd stop investigating. His voice cracked. I never thought they'd actually arrest you. I thought you'd hire a lawyer and fight it and maybe it would just go away. It nearly destroyed my life. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough. Trevor took the plea deal, pled guilty in federal court to all 4 charges, made a statement admitting everything. The judge, a different one this time, a woman named Honorable Lisa Montgomery with 20 years on the bench, sentenced him to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. Ordered him to pay me $83,000 in restitution for legal fees and emotional damages. Ordered him to forfeit any claim to Richard Whitmore's estate. Trevor was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. Christine was there, crying in the gallery. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge my presence. When Trevor passed her, he mouthed something that looked like, I'm sorry. She nodded, wiping tears. The bailiff led him through a side door, and he was gone. The estate finally settled 6 months later. Leonard Kaplan called to tell me the funds were being released. $1.6 million after taxes, legal fees, and all the delays caused by Trevor's fraud. The money hit my account on a Friday morning. I stared at the balance for a long time, thought about what it had cost. My relationship with my stepmother, destroyed. My relationship with most of Christine's family, destroyed. Months of stress and fear and anger, nearly being sent to federal prison for a crime I didn't commit. All because Trevor wanted money he hadn't earned and was willing to destroy me to get it. The money felt tainted, felt like blood money even though I'd done nothing wrong. I donated $50,000 to a legal aid organization that helps people who can't afford attorneys. Put another $200,000 in a trust for Dad's favorite charity, a wildlife conservation group he'd supported for years. Invested the rest conservatively. Tried not to think about it too much. I saw Christine one more time, a year after Trevor's sentencing. Ran into her at a grocery store in Boulder where I'd gone to handle some final estate paperwork. She was in the produce section examining apples. Looked older than I remembered. Gray in her hair that hadn't been there before. She saw me and froze. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, very quietly, "I hope you're satisfied." Satisfied? He's in prison because of you. He's in prison because he committed multiple federal crimes. You could have dropped the charges. Shown mercy. He's family. He tried to frame me. Tried to send me to prison. Tried to steal everything Dad left me. You expect me to show mercy for that? You got your money. You got your revenge. What more do you want? I didn't want any of this. I wanted Trevor to not be a criminal. I wanted a stepbrother I could trust. I wanted a family that didn't fall apart the second someone died. You destroyed my son's life. No, Trevor destroyed his own life. I just made sure he faced consequences instead of me. She turned away, put down the apple she'd been holding, walked toward the exit without looking back. I finished my shopping and left. Never saw her again. Linda, Christine's sister, sent me one email months later. Said I should be ashamed. Said family forgives family. Said I'd chosen money over people. I didn't respond. Some people will always believe that blood is thicker than truth, that family loyalty means protecting each other even when one of you is a criminal. I don't believe that. I believe family means not framing each other for federal crimes, means not trying to steal inheritances through identity theft, means not destroying someone's life because you're in debt and too proud to ask for help. Trevor's in his 3rd year now. Federal correctional institution in Colorado. Minimum security because he took the plea deal and showed remorse. He'll be eligible for early release in another year if he maintains good behavior. I've never visited, never written, never responded to the 2 letters he sent me during his 1st year inside. The first letter was apologetic. Said he'd had time to think about what he'd done. Said he understood why I couldn't forgive him. Said he hoped someday we could talk. The second letter was angrier. Said I'd overreacted. Said 5 years was too harsh for what amounted to a failed attempt at fraud. Said real brothers would have worked it out without involving the FBI. I threw both letters away. We're not real brothers. We were never real brothers. We were 2 people who happened to share a blended family for 14 years and who had nothing in common except a dead parent. And when money was on the line, he chose to destroy me rather than accept what Dad had decided was fair. That's not brotherhood. That's betrayal. I think about the case sometimes. Think about how close I came to being convicted of crimes I didn't commit. If Dr. Pierce hadn't found the remote access software, if Trevor hadn't purchased it from a traceable company, if his laptop hadn't kept connection logs, I might be in federal prison right now. Might have lost everything because a jury believed the evidence more than my protests of innocence. The system works, people say. The truth came out. Justice was served. But the system almost didn't work. Almost sent an innocent man to prison while letting the guilty one walk free with stolen money. That's not a comfortable thought. My career survived, but it changed. Word got around at Titan Aerospace about the investigation and arrest, even though charges were dropped. Some colleagues were supportive. Others kept their distance like they weren't quite sure whether to believe me or not. I left the company after 2 years and started my own consulting firm. Work with clients on mechanical engineering projects, set my own hours, answer to no one but myself. The independence is worth more than the salary I gave up. I date occasionally but haven't told anyone about Trevor or the trial or what happened to my family. It's too much to explain on a 3rd date over dinner. Too heavy a story for someone you barely know, so I keep it to myself. Another weight I carry alone. Sometimes late at night I wonder if Trevor thinks about what he did. If he lies awake in his cell and regrets the choice that cost him 5 years of freedom, or if he just resents me for not taking the fall like he planned. I'll probably never know. Don't particularly care to know. He made his choices, lived with the consequences. That's how the world is supposed to work, even if it rarely does. The inheritance sits in investment accounts growing slowly. I use some of it for living expenses, some for the business, some for donations to causes Dad would have supported. The rest just accumulates. Numbers on a screen that represent my father's life work and my stepbrother's willingness to destroy me for a share of it. Some nights that feels like winning. Most nights, it just feels like surviving. And maybe that's enough. Maybe survival is the only victory that matters when family becomes the enemy, and the truth is the only weapon you have. Trevor wanted my inheritance. Instead, he got a prison sentence and a criminal record that will follow him forever. I got the money, but lost the family. We both lost in different ways. The only winner was the truth, and sometimes In a world that runs on lies and manipulation and careful deception, that has to be enough. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.